Hello there, my name is Tony Matters. I'm the founder and creative director of Faber. Faber is a design agency. We specialise in the restaurant and hospitality sector. I'd firstly just like to say thank you for asking me to talk and share my own story. I think the title of this non-linear journey, I've had a very non-linear journey myself. So I thought if it's not too self-indulgent, then really I wanted to just tell my own story of how I've arrived where I am. I think it's too easy. I mean, thinking back to myself when I was much younger, a student or graduating, it's too easy to think that you need to fall straight into the job of your dreams or the exact job that you would want. I think it's probably more often the case that doesn't really happen, and it doesn't mean that you're not going to get to where you want to get to, or it doesn't mean that you're going to have a fantastic career. And if anything, actually, I think what I hope my own experiences would show is that sometimes the more meandering your journey is, the better you are for it. The more you learn, the more varied your skill set is. So hopefully this I'll try and not waffle too much, and I'll try and be interesting if I can. So I'm going to start fairly early on. So I was definitely one of those kids at school. I was really into drawing, and I would start with my school exercise book. I would be doing my work in the front of the book. I would be doing drawings in the back of the book, and I'd always get past the middle of the book, the exercise book, with drawings. I was completely obsessed with drawing. I don't know why. I'm not really sure where it came from. Maybe my parents, or I used to sit up at night and draw on my windowsill with the sort of street lights. I was just completely obsessed with drawing. So I always kind of felt I had this thing that I loved doing, and I suppose I always thought my dream would be to have a career that used these use this skill in some way. I actually was a bit of a dosser at school, if I'm honest. Particularly later on, I kind of lost my way a bit and decided that it was more important to be cool than to work hard, and didn't do brilliant at school. So I actually left school, which would have been, oh blimey, when did I leave school? Maybe 1991, something like that, so quite a while ago. I left school and did a thing called a YTS, which stands for Youth Training Scheme. Now this is probably a bit like an apprenticeship now, where it's a good thing to do. Well, then it was what you did if you didn't really know what else to do, or what you did if you didn't get sort of strong GCSEs. I wouldn't have been able to probably go on and do A-levels, and so I did a YTS. Now this YTS, it was like a vocational training course. It was at a training centre. I grew up in a town called Grimsby, so it was in Grimsby. And it was a YTS. It was a qualification in, oh gosh, what was it? Business, information technology and business administration, something like that. I can't remember exactly, but it was basically learning how to use computers, because back in 1991 things were a lot more basic than they are now. I mean, Windows didn't exist, Microsoft Windows didn't exist, so when you started up a computer you had to type in commands on a command line to get a program to run. So we were taught how to use word processing. I think this was before Word, so I'm pretty sure, I might be wrong, but I think it was a program called Word Perfect. We were taught how to use spreadsheets. It was a program called Lotus 123. This was before the days of Excel. And yeah, it was just a bit of a general sort of course. So I did that, and I actually really enjoyed it. I liked using computers. It was definitely something I enjoyed. I then got a placement with a company called CADfax. Now this company, as the name suggests, they did two things. They did CAD, and this is AutoCAD. Now obviously, if you're not in architectural and interior design, you may not be that familiar with AutoCAD, but it's still the industry standard really now. Back then AutoCAD was it was probably in its sort of early days, this company used to take hand-drawn drawings and turn them into CAD drawings. So they were given the contract to essentially draw an oil refinery, and these are schematic drawings, so all sort of diagrams and things. So I would sit there every day on this placement and be handed enormous AO size hand-drawn schematic drawings, and my job was to copy them and do them on CAD. So it was not particularly interesting, but a fantastic way of learning a skill that would become absolutely invaluable for me throughout my career. I did that for 9 months. Then I decided that it was about time I tried to get my ambitions back on track. So I actually applied to art school. I wanted to do a foundation, but they wouldn't let me in because I did so badly in my GCSEs. So I had to do a thing called a BTEC first diploma. So this is like a GCSE level kind of brush-up course. It was a BTEC first diploma in design, and you did a bit of everything. And it was actually brilliant. And this is the first real thing that I did that actually, well, I probably didn't realise until later, but it really benefited me. So I did a year at the art school in Grimsby doing this BTEC first diploma. We did all sorts of things. We did photography and you know, different types of design, and it was a real sort of taster. From there, I realised that I wasn't a massively artistic person. I was quite technical. I used to love doing more technical drawings. I was always very precise with the way I did things. One of the tutors there suggested I look at a BTEC national diploma, which is what I went to do next. It was in 3D design. So it was more kind of vocational, because the other option would have been to go and do like a foundation course in art, or you know, be a bit more creative. But so I had a look at this. It was in Lincoln. It was the art school in Lincoln, and I went and did a BTEC national diploma, which was 2 years in 3D design. That was a mix of product design, furniture design, and interiors, and I absolutely loved it. Again, I got to try a variety of different things. The head of the course was sufficiently young and open-minded. He let us really have a go at all sorts of things, and I enjoyed it all. And I tried, you know, product design, vehicle design. I always had a bit of a hankering to be an architect, and I always felt I would never be able to be an architect because I wasn't very academic at school. So I thought, well, I'll try interiors because it's sort of taking me closer to being an architect. So I had to go at doing interiors on this BTEC course, and I really enjoyed it, and I decided that was the thing that I wanted to do. So I then went and did my I applied to Ravensbourne, which at the time was considered for interiors one of the best degrees you could do. It was certainly, you know, it was quite hard to get into. The interview process was very rigorous, but I went for an interview there and got in. One of the things I realised, and I think I don't think I realised this properly until maybe I was on my degree, but I always felt like a bit of a dunce for having to do the 1 year BTEC first diploma. And actually, looking back, what it actually did was it gave me a year's head start on everyone else. So when I went to do my 2-year BTEC, I'd already been doing it for a year in a way. So I was actually better. There was me and another guy, a good friend of mine, Jim Blythe, who's now, he runs his own design agency. He carried on doing industrial design. We both did the BTEC first diploma together. We then went and did our national diploma, and we just found that we were ahead of everyone else. And we, obviously being a bit young and a bit kind of, you know, arrogant maybe, we thought it's just because we were brilliant. We thought, well, obviously we're better than everyone else because we're basically brilliant. In actual fact, looking back, it was because we'd done that year, because so what I thought was a bad thing, what I was a little bit embarrassed about having to do that, actually was great, because it meant on the BTEC we were a little bit ahead of everyone else. By the time I got onto my degree, it was the same thing really. And although it was, I mean, the degree was much more competitive. There were some really, incredible designers, some really, really clever people I met on my degree. But at the same time, I was still very much up there in the sort of stronger set, and I think it was because of that extra year that I did. The other thing that I always had to do was I always had to work, because I had to completely self-fund my time at college and university. So I always had a part-time job. So I ended up getting jobs working in the sort of hospitality industry, working as a waiter or working in a kitchen. And again, that was another thing that gave me, well, actually working as a waiter, I was painfully shy when I was younger. Working as a waiter taught me how to talk to people, really. It gave me the sort of skills, because I wasn't particularly confident, and it enabled me to just communicate with people and communicate with strangers, and it actually taught me those interpersonal skills. So again, something else that I had to do that I wasn't a big fan of at the time, which was having to work having to work part-time. It ended up being a good thing. And in fact, actually, before I went to college, I did all sorts of jobs. I had a job. There's a factory in Grimsby that, well, at the time there was, I don't know whether it's still there, but they made WD-40, the spray oil, and I got a job. My job was putting you used to get a straw with an elastic band around the can, and my job was straw and elastic band man, and then I got promoted onto the nozzle line, which was quite good. I worked on the fish docks in the summer, which is a kind of a lovely smelling place. Even now I still, for some reason, quite like the smell of fish, and again, all of those sort of crazy, crappy jobs that you end up doing, they kind of build your character in a way, and you build an element of resilience, I think, as a person, by having to do things that you don't particularly want to do. So anyway, so I did my degree. I absolutely loved it. I had a brilliant time at Ravensbourne. I met some fantastic people. I then got my first job straight from university. Now, it was with a designer called Paul Atkinson. It was actually in Leicester. It came through my mate Jim, actually, he did a placement at this company. He went to Northumbria, Jim did, and did a 4-year degree where you do a year in industry, and his placement was with Paul Atkinson at Atkinson Design. And when he was there doing his placement, I was graduating that year, and there was an opportunity, a position became available. He got me an interview, I interviewed and got the job. Never really, it kind of I fell into it in a way, but it wasn't what was interesting. I did interior architecture at university, and that's definitely what I wanted to do, but my first job, Atkinson's didn't really do interiors, that they were an industrial designer. Paul Atkinson himself was a trained cabinet maker who went to the Royal College and trained as a furniture designer. They used to do sort of retail design and furniture design and office furniture and a whole variety of different things. But I was really pleased to have a job, because I think when I graduated, which would have been 1998, I think, jobs were sort of fairly hard to come by, I think. So I was really pleased to have a job. I thought I'd maybe move to Leicester, stay there for a year or maybe 2, and then head back down to London, because Ravensbourne I lived in. It was in South London. So I got a job at Atkinson's. I really enjoyed it. One of the things I enjoyed most is they had a workshop, and for most of their projects, because of the scale of what they were doing, for most of their projects they would build prototypes. So if we were doing a piece of retail design, we might build part of a store interior or some of the fixtures and fittings or whatever it was. So I learnt some amazing skills using this workshop. We actually shared the workshop with a company of cabinet makers, so they were there to kind of learn from as well. If we needed help, that they would help us. So it was definitely something I found really, really useful. I worked for Paul Atkinson for about 5 years. I ended up doing quite well within the company. I stayed much longer than I thought I would. I ended up doing a lot of work for retail companies, particularly Booch the Chemist. I did a lot of work for Booch the Chemist. I became the sort of key designer within the company for the boots work, and most of the work we were doing was within the sort of colour cosmetics and skincare ranges. So it was I became like a proper expert on kind of makeup and stuff, which was a little bit weird because I was a bit of a sort of a bit of a macho man at the time, so I thought that was quite amusing. So I kind of got to a point in Atkinson's where I felt, you know, I'd really, it had run its course. I was ready to move on. I was ready for a new challenge. For some reason, I decided to leave and set up a design and build company. My partner at the time, who's now my wife, Rosemary, we bought an old knitwear factory in Leicester, and we bought it as a factory to convert it into our house, which we did about a year before I left Atkinson's. We bought this incredible building. The plan was, you know, I was going to do all of the work myself, and I did actually get properly stuck in and did lots of it, and really enjoyed getting hands-on. I think the nice thing about making things in a physical sense is that you spend a day working, you get to the end of the day and there's something there to show for it. Whereas, you know, I was used to working on projects where I might be working on something for a year, and it's only then that you see the thing come to life. So so I decided it would be interesting to set up a design and build company with Rosemary. So the idea was that we would design things, and then we would have our own team of sort of craftsmen and tradesmen, and we would do the build as well. And so I handed in my notice, and I think I was finishing in December, and on literally like January the 4th, we had our first job booked in, which was a private residential commission. Now we had a bit of a spanner in the works in that in December I'd done a bit of a mini recruitment process. I'd hired a bit of a general builder chap. I'd also hired a plumber who were going to work for us directly, and the idea was we would design and manage the projects. The general builder guy pulled out at the 11th hour. He decided that he didn't want to leave his current employer. So I was kind of stuck. It was too late really to find anyone. So I had to get my hands dirty. And actually, when we started in the January, this first job, it was myself and the plumber who were the main, we were doing the main work on this particular project. And we had subcontractors we were working with as well. But I got very, very hands-on. And I absolutely loved it, and to the extent where I never really managed to recruit the general builder. I ended up doing it myself. So I actually got very, very hands-on for a number of years, and I just really enjoyed learning lots and lots of new skills. It was great, obviously working on my own project at home as well, and so we did this for, I don't know, maybe 5 years, and it started to, became quite a decent little sort of business really. We were doing some fairly okay sort of projects. Over time though, I've got to be honest, it once the sort of challenge of learning new skills kind of faded, it very much taken me away from my ambitions, my design ambitions, and actually to the point where I think when I was in my, I think I might have been 30 or in my early 30s, I kind of had a bit of a mini midlife crisis, because I thought, well, hang on, I was, destined to have this fantastic career in design, and all of a sudden I found myself essentially working as a builder, albeit a fairly successful builder, doing some quite high-end kind of swanky projects. But at the same time, I was driving around in our transit van, and I was covered in dust and crap, and it definitely wasn't the plan. So I decided I had to sort of reshift my focus. So I think it actually took me, I think it was about 9 years I ended up doing that for, because it was a bit like a like a big ship or something, where you can't just stop and then start doing something else, or at least it's not the way it worked out. So it took me quite a number of years to move on to my next thing. My next thing was Faber. So I decided to, we designed a couple of restaurants within the previous business, which was Heterarchy. We designed a couple of restaurants, and I really enjoyed it, and I realised I had this natural affinity for designing restaurants, and I wasn't sure why, but then I realised maybe a bit later that it was because I'd done so much work in restaurants. So I'd worked as a waiter, I'd worked in kitchens, I just understood the way restaurants worked, and all of those shifts that I'd put in actually paid off as a designer in that I found I just understood the way restaurants should work. So I decided to, I got a project to design the first restaurant for a Michelin-starred chef called Adam Stokes. He was moving down from Scotland to Birmingham. I won the project to do his first restaurant. We basically got paid nothing to do it, really, in the scheme of things. But I was so keen to do this project, and it can become a real sort of, a selling point for us. So we did that project in Birmingham. It went really, really well. It was a huge success for the client. I just got a bit of a sense that Birmingham, living in Leicester, Birmingham's the sort of closest, largest city. And I got the sense that there was a real food scene emerging in Birmingham. I think this would have been about 2012, something like that. And I decided to essentially start a new business. So I kind of moved to Birmingham, opened an office. I'd not had a brilliant time. I think we'd gone through a tough time with the previous business, didn't really have any money. We had quite a large overdraft at the time. I was at the end of the overdraft. I had basically, I think I remember, it was about 50 quid in the bank, and went to the custard factory in Birmingham, looked at an office, and decided, well, I'm just going to go for it. I'm just going to take this office on, and I put the deposit for the first month's rent on a credit card, and took this office and had no work, no clients, literally starting from zero, and just started going out to kind of networking events and trying to meet people. And I found it really exciting, and I found, it's amazing really sometimes when you have no safety net, when you just have to make it happen. I found it really energizing, and before long we picked up a project because someone had seen the work that we'd done for Adam Stokes. We then picked up a second project in Birmingham, which was the Edgbaston, which was it's a fantastic boutique hotel with cocktail lounges, and so we won that project. It was, at this time it was myself and a junior designer, and we just got stuck in, and we've never really looked back. So that was, I think, 7 years ago this year, 7 years ago in June, that we opened this office with no money, no clients, and it's just really grown from there. We've become I would suggest we've become a real kind of specialist within the sector that we operate in. We've developed very good expertise. The team has grown. What we do for our clients has grown. So we started out just purely doing interior design, through a natural process really of constantly being asked to do things. A client would ask, I do recall Adam Stokes and his wife Natasha asking us if we could do their branding for them, and I said no, it's not something we would get involved in. Other clients asking us the same thing, and we said no, it's not something we really do. And then what would happen is sometimes they'd go to someone else, they'd get their branding done, and we would look at it, and we would be a bit disappointed with the outcome of that. So after a couple of years, I hired a graphic designer, and we started doing bits and bobs of branding work. This sort of process has grown now to the point where we get involved in all sorts, staff uniforms, branding, websites, but all for a very specific type of customer, which is a restaurant. So we're now a bit of a one-stop creative shop, specifically for restaurants. We've done numerous Michelin-starred restaurants. There's a thing that it's the world's largest and most prestigious culinary competition that no one's ever heard of, called the Bocuse d'Or. We're the official designers for Team UK. It's a bit like it's like the Olympics for food in a way. Each country puts together a team of their youngest and brightest stars within the food industry. You'd have to Google it. I would try and explain it to you, but you probably wouldn't. It would just sound too crazy. But there's quite a large design element to this this competition that happens every 2 years. So we're the official designers, which means we've got to know even more chefs. We've really become almost like the chef's designers in a way. We love designing restaurants. We love doing everything from fine dining to kind of casual dining. And I think for me, now that we have the ability to deliver this complete experience, so with the branding and with the staff uniforms and tableware and every single thing that the customer kind of sees and touches, for me, this is where it really starts to work. And I feel it was definitely the right decision to be a bit brave really and start taking on these other elements of projects that we were being asked to do. So, and that kind of brings us to now. I mean, now obviously I'm sat here on my own in the studio because it's because there's this crazy sort of lockdown thing going on, and it's the industry that we work in now, the restaurant and hospitality industry, has been hit quite hard by this. I think we're lucky in some ways because we are such a specialist. It almost seems counterintuitive. People would say to me when I decided I wanted to specialise in designing one thing, people would say, well, but surely isn't that so risky? Because if that particular sector has a recession, or if there's problems, you're kind of a bit stuck. But I've always had this belief that you're better off being really, really good at doing one thing, because with us now, I've put every single egg into the basket that is restaurant design, and what it's actually meant for us is, because we're seen as the genuine specialists, when the chips are down and when the industry is struggling, I think the ones who continue to survive are the true specialists. I think if we were a bit of a generalist and we never really found our place in the world, I think we would be struggling now. Whereas actually people are still coming to us for work even now because they want to work with us. So for me, that was a big learning. So I mean, that's kind of it really. I mean, that is my story. I think the big learnings for me is that there were various points during my journey where I thought I ruined my life. I mean, particularly the bit where I woke up and suddenly realised I'd turned into a builder was not a very good place for me to be in, and I really thought that I'd taken the wrong path and that it was too late. And actually it made me realise that not only is it never ever too late, and you guys are at the beginning of your journey, so there's you're miles away from that realisation, but not only is it never too late, all of the kind of random things you end up doing, they actually add. I mean, because now as a business, all of the experience I've had of building things gives me a level of insight when we build a restaurant that very few designers would get unless they'd spent 9 years running a building company. So for me, everything that you do adds to you as a person, and it adds to your skill set. And I would say whatever it is that you do, just do it well. Even if you're doing a job that you don't particularly want to do it well. When I was working as a waiter I worked in Pizza Hut for 3 years when I was at university, and I always tried to be the best pizza waiter that I possibly could. So whatever you do it well, work hard, never ever give up on whatever it is that you want to do in your life, because if you want it enough, it will happen. I genuinely believe the people who don't achieve their ambitions in life are the ones who at some point just give up. So if you never give up, then you will eventually get there. So with you guys, just particularly now, the economy is in a bit of a tricky place. You may not be able to find your dream job. It doesn't matter. Just get something, get working, get yourself busy, keep being inspired, keep an open mind about things, keep being positive, and you will, you'll get there, and you'll get there with even more skills than you thought you would do. So So yeah, so look, that's me kind of waffling really, but hopefully it's interesting, and you know, you get something from it. So you know, thank you again for asking me to talk. It does feel a little bit self-indulgent, if I'm honest, to just sit here and sort of talk about myself, but hopefully it was interesting. And yeah, look, all the best with you know, whatever is coming next for you all.